Hello. Let's talk about the Beatles, aka the Beatles, depending on who you ask. A few thoughts on the Beatles. Certainly, probably the most influential band in history. Maybe even the most influential artist. Some of your classical composers, they might have an argument with that, but definitely the Beatles are going to be up there. Um, really set the stage for the whole 1960s, for the whole decade when it comes to music. A lot of it when it comes to culture, when it comes to fashion. Fashion-wise, you have the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's 1966. They begin to bring on brightly colored things, like clothes for one thing. They also grow facial hair. So when you see like the later 1960s counterculture movement, like San Francisco, 67, the Summer of Love, and going into 68 and 69, and some of that can definitely be traced all the way back to the Beatles. They were definitely a fashion trendsetter. Musically speaking, great songwriters. I mean, they could write hit after hit after hit, just done very, very well. Could play their instruments pretty well. Probably not the greatest when it comes to that, but they could still do pretty well. Just to put things into perspective for you as we go up through the history when it comes to rock and roll, I guess you could say the biggies so far. Bill Haley, he does his thing. Let's see, Rock Around the Clock is 1955. He's old and his band is old. Then you get to Elvis. Elvis is young, but his band is a little older. You get to Buddy Holly. The Crickets, all three of them are young, but Buddy Holly is the main guy. He's definitely the guy that is out front of the band. He's the only one who sings. But when you get to the Beatles, they're the first band that I can think of that plays instruments and does everything and puts on a good show, where all the members take on an active frontman role. You can make an argument for Ringo Starr and George Harrison certainly not doing it as much. Ringo never sang, and he's in the back, obviously, on the drums. George Harrison sang backup a little bit. I can't think of a song where he sang lead. I mean, he did when he had his solo career and, obviously, and things like that. But when it comes to John Lennon and Paul McCartney, they certainly are like the two front men. But really, each member of the band had their own different fan base. So that's the first time in rock and roll that happens. That you have a band full of younger members who all are focused when it comes to the fan base, and they are definitely looked upon as superstars. For instance, when it comes to Buddy Holly and the Crickets, nobody knows the name of the guy playing drums and the guy playing bass. That's not the case when it comes to the Beatles. So yeah, they're also one of the first bands where you can actually watch them grow up. Whenever they come into America, whenever they have like their big heyday when it comes to the Ed Sullivan Show, and when they actually do make it over here to the U.S. and the British invasion begins in 1964, they're playing very poppy, very happy, very teenager-esque tunes. But then they get older and they grow up, 66 Sgt. Pepper, 67 Yellow Submarine, and so forth and so on as they get older up until they officially break up in 1970, I believe. They're one of the few bands where you can actually watch them grow up. And their fan base, to a point, grows up with them. So that's a pretty unique thing. Anyways, my thoughts on the Beatles. Thanks.